A very good evening and welcome to Bottomline Africa. My name is Abi Agina. Today on the show, we'll be taking a look at what's making headlines across the region as South Africans continue to send in tributes for their fallen leader, Winnie Mandela. We have that and much more. But first, let's take a look at the highlights. South Africa holds the final memorial celebration for the late freedom icon Winnie Mandela. Algeria is in mourning following a military plane crash claimed way over 250 lives. The Trump administration has lifted a travel ban against visitor and immigrants from Chad. And just what is your child browsing on the internet? A new report will leave most East African parents puzzled. South Africa has staged the official memorial service for Winnie Mandela, the anti-apartheid activist, and Nelson Mandela's former wife. Thousands of mourners flocked to the heart of South Africa's sprawling Soweto township, where a center of anti-apartheid resistance, to pay tribute to Nelson Mandela's former wife and struggle hero, Winnie Mandela. Her grandson, Mombasa Mandela, described Winnie, who died on April the 2nd after a long illness, as an extraordinary woman, a mother, a soldier, a fighter. In life, Winnie Mandela was known as actually known as a brave anti-apartheid activist whose reputation was badly tainted by criminal convictions and thuggish gang violence. But in death, her checkered record has largely been forgiven in South Africa, with the president declaring 12 days of mourning and the government accusing her critics of pushing an anti-apartheid era narrative. Defending Winnie Mandela, Mandela's legacy has become a rallying call for South African politicians keen to tap into her radical and compromising image that now resonates with many young black voters.
As a mother, as a woman, as a girl, she has experience. She had a better chance of fighting from that view because herself went through, she was a young girl, she got married, she was separated from her husband, she had to raise her children all by herself, and she experienced more than almost most women have experienced in her lifetime.
We are here to celebrate the life of Winnie Mandela. She did a lot for us, especially for us, the youth. She fought against the white supremacy in order for us to be where we are today. She was a good example, basically, to South African females. So I think that in order, it creates a perspective so that South African women can become stronger in life and they can achieve whatever they want.
To some sad developments now. At least 257 people have died after a military plane crashed in northern Algeria, the Defense Ministry says. The incident happened shortly after the aircraft took off from Boufarik Military Airport near the capital Algiers in the morning. Most of the dead are army personnel and their families, according to the Defense Ministry. 10 crew members were also killed. It is not yet clear what caused the crash. The Army's Chief of Staff has ordered an investigation into the crash and will visit the scene. It is the deadliest plane crash since July 2014, when all 298 people on board Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 died when it was shot down over eastern Ukraine. It is also the second deadliest plane crash since 2013. Among the dead are said to be 26 members of the Polisario Front seeking independence from Morocco for Western Sahara and supported by Algeria.
I was in my house and it was around 8 a.m. Something like that. We had a big explosion, and then me and my neighbor drove here by car. There was a very heavy smoke, and then we realized it was an airplane accident. When we arrived at the spot itself, we found piles of bodies. It is a disaster, an absolute disaster. I don't want to speak about the bodies.
Hundreds of angry demonstrators on Wednesday laid their bodies of at least 9 people killed in recent clashes in Central African Republic, capital Bangui in front of the headquarters of the United Nations mission. The peacekeeping mission, MINUSCA, said late on Tuesday that one Rwandan UN soldier was killed and 8 others were wounded in clashes with armed groups in the PK5 neighborhood, a Muslim area of the majority Christian city. At least 10 people were killed in clashes that broke out between United Nations peacekeepers and demonstrators in Central African Republic capital Bangui on Tuesday, Reuters reported. Demonstrators on Wednesday laid their bodies of the deceased outside the UN headquarters in Bangui.
If it is a kind of so-called disarming operation, I don't know. But yesterday there was an important MINUSCA contingent deployed, the Rwandan contingent, who appeared at the PK5 at the level of the 5th arrondissement and started by shooting at the protesters, killing and wounding several people. We don't understand anything anymore. Is this mission about shooting at civilians, or is it another kind of mission? We want an explanation, and that is why we are here. This is an operation which will keep going. Relating to the shots heard this morning and MINUSCA's intervention, MINUSCA is side by side with the defense and security forces of Central Africa to try and end the activities of criminal groups.
2 senior judges in the Democratic Republic of Congo have resigned from the Constitutional Court in a move likely to undermine the transparency of elections in December. Neither have they given reasons for quitting. The 2 jurists, Banyaku Luape and Jean-Louis Esabo, had a reputation for being independent. In 2016, they stayed away from a hearing that allowed the Electoral Commission to delay the poll that year. With their departure and after the death last weekend of another judge, Yvonne Kalonda, the Constitutional Court is down from 9 to 6 members. The DRC government says that there will be elections on the 23rd of December later this year. That's 2 years after the expiry of President Joseph Kabila's mandate. A clampdown on dissent, disarray in the opposition and the state of the electoral roll have already raised questions over how fair that poll can be. The Constitutional Court continues to be one of the spotlights in Congo. Well, from Congo, let's take you to Sudan now. And the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, has expressed concerns over the security of civilians in South Sudan, where a 4-year civil war continues to claim innocent lives, displace civilians, and destroy property. Nyalulala and her husband are among 44 patients who were evacuated earlier this year to the ICRC field hospital in Galniele, South Sudan, for treatment. Nyaluala and other family members were injured in gunfire when fighting flared around their village in February. She lost her son during the attack. Nyalulala's leg was amputated as a result of the injuries she sustained. Conflict in the country began after President Salva Kiir, an ethnic Dinka, fired his deputy Riek Machar, an ethnic Nuer, in 2013. Tens of thousands are estimated to have died in conflict, which has also displaced a quarter of the country's population of 12 million.
Our lives are difficult, very tough, because we are in a state of violence.
My wife was shot. My children were shot. One of my sons died instantly, and I was also shot. We have all become very vulnerable.
There was a big fight pretty far from here, so all the patients have to be flown in to here. They arrived in a hospital there, and so we could go there, select the worst case patients to come here first. What you see a lot is the bullet wounds, big injuries, mostly in the legs. So most of the wounds, before they get treated, they were already infected. They're getting dirty, so we have to do a lot of debridement to clean the wounds, heal the fractures.
A visiting UK Minister of State for the Armed Forces, Right Honourable Mark Lancaster, has paid tribute to the AU troops in Somalia for securing the country and reducing the threat of terrorism. The minister met with AU special representatives to Somalia, Ambassador Francisco Caetano Madeira, and the AMISOM Force Commander, Lieutenant General Jim Besigye Omwe-Sijire, where they discussed the transitioning of security responsibilities from AMISOM to the Somali security forces and the nature and volume of UK support to the AU mission. The United Kingdom Mission Support Team under the UK 70 project has enhanced capacity building and other support to AMISOM troops and the Somali security forces in Mogadishu and the regions to boost the war against Al-Shabaab. The UK Minister's advice and training support to AMISOM are in the areas of logistics, medical and heavy engineering capabilities.
I've just met with Ambassador Madeira and indeed the Force Commander. I would start by paying tribute to the work of AMISOM over the last 11 years and indeed the sacrifices that have been made, because without doubt, unless the good work of AMISOM over the last 11 years had happened, then Somalia would not be on the course of progress that it is here today. We've discussed how potentially we can do more to support the mission, but equally talking about how we can progress the situation here in Somalia over the coming months and years.
We were delighted that the UK has taken so much interest on what we're doing here, and that they sent a Minister of State for the Armed Forces. So that visit in itself is very significant, in the sense that we have a very high senior member of the British UK government with us in this battle.
The United States has announced the lifting of its 6-month ban on visitors and immigrants from Chad, saying the country had met key security requirements for vetting travelers. The travel restrictions will be officially terminated on April the 13th. The Central African country's government, which the US calls a critical partner in fighting terrorism, had expressed astonishment in September last year when the US unexpectedly added it to a list of 5 other mainly Muslim countries under a travel ban. Chad's Foreign Minister Thierry Mahmat Zene welcomed the news. Critics say the ban, first declared in January 2017 without Chad on the list, targeted Muslim travelers, pointing to President Donald Trump's campaign promises to ban Muslims from coming to the United States. Well, indeed, some good news there for Chad. Standard Bank is working on plans to partner with its biggest shareholder, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, to capitalize on a Chinese investment drive into Ivory Coast and establish a regional hub in French-speaking West Africa. The group's chief executive, Sim Shabalala, made the revelation in Abidjan, where the Johannesburg-based Lenders, Africa's largest bank by assets, launched a new subsidiary aimed at corporate and investment banking clients. Ivory Coast, an agricultural commodities powerhouse and the world's largest cocoa producer, makes up around 40% of the economy of the 8-nation West African Economic and Monetary Union. A post-war economic boom there, driven by major infrastructure investments, is increasingly drawing the attention of China.
In the Ivory Coast, Chinese companies and the Chinese authorities have committed over $7.5 billion over the next few years to invest in infrastructure. And by virtue of our relationship with the ICBC, we think we're in a position to provide advice, structuring, and the capability to deploy the resources necessary to get involved in that infrastructure. So that deals with the Chinese question. Côte d'Ivoire is growing at 7% and is likely to grow at around that rate for the next couple of years till 2020. And banks grow off the back of GDP growth. And therefore, GDP, financial deepening, you've got the stock exchange here, therefore capital, equity capital markets, and you've got developments in the debt capital. We have to start in the Ivory Coast. You can't, you've got to learn to walk before you run. And we've got enough opportunities here in the Ivory Coast. And then we've got clients in the region who will be able to serve us out of these operations. So we're not in a rush. We've got to establish ourselves here, build the infrastructure, build the product set, build the client base. And then as we grow, we will then lift our heads to see if we need to have installations in other parts of the region.
Former Zanzibar President Amani Abedi Karume has been instrumental in leading peace initiatives across Africa. He just left Kenya earlier today to Uganda to prepare for the East Africa Regional Global Peace Leadership Conference. Our reporter Mark Namaswa caught up with him a few minutes before he left the country. This is what he had to say.
Dr. Amani Karume is in the country and is also moving across the region, discussing or making peace. And as the name suggests, the name Amani suggests he's all about peace. But let's first get it from him, what brings him to the country and moving forward. Welcome, Dr. Amani. Why are you here?
Well, I'm here en route to Kampala. We arrived yesterday morning, and in the afternoon, we had a couple of meetings, with our partners, because I'm representing the Global Peace Foundation. And the meeting we had yesterday afternoon was with the UN Res Rep, UNDP Res Rep here in Kenya. And we're discussing about, the many issues about peace in the region. We also discussed about, the UN involvement and support in this cross-border initiative, which has taken place between Kenya and Ethiopia. And we discussed other issues, that are helpful in the peace-building process. And we're happy to have the UN, supporting our cause, of promoting peace here in this region, and promoting peace. Actually, what we do is that we promote peace almost everywhere where there's no peace. Our job is just to go, convince people that it's good to talk. It's good to talk peace. It's good. And when you talk peace, you have to walk peace as well. You see, because peace, without peace, there's no development. Without peace, there is no, growth, be it economic, social, or even political,
Looking at the East African context, we almost always have issues concerning instability every 5 years or so. But from the layman's perspective, we have different triggers. But according to you, what are the main triggers that necessitate us to delve into peace building every now and then in this region?
Well, according to, this is my personal opinion, I think it's got to do with misconception and misunderstanding of a truly democratic process. Democracy is about people, and what we are practicing in our region here is what we call the liberal democratic process that allows everybody to take part in the process. And at the end of the day, the final decision is done by the people. Now, whether the people have decided to elect one party today and tomorrow they elect another party, another year they elect another. That is irrelevant. The most important thing is that people have to have unity here. Look at how, developed countries run their elections. Of course, in the old days, they had their problems, maybe even worse than what we are experiencing here in our region. But now, they've had a lot of experience, and power changes hands, easily, and with a handshake, and congratulations that, okay, this time you win, but we'll meet again after 5 years. That's how politics should be run in our region.
As a peace builder, kindly inform us what happens in the background, because a lot of information is often filtered away from members of the public as well as the press. What type of negotiations and what types of strategies do you deploy to make sure that two warring factions come to an amicable conclusion?
In my opinion, I think it's a very, very simple and easy thing to do, especially in a country where you believe in nationalistic principles. You all believe in your country, you believe in your nation, you believe in your people, you believe in your development. You see, it's very easy to initiate peace. Well, political parties have their own views. Each party has its own view. But look, what are the main objectives of political parties? First is to gain power, right? Secondly, what do they do after gaining power? Read their election manifestos. They promise they'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and all for whose interest? For the interest of the people of the country, right? Now, if you see the manifestos of all political parties, and compare them, in the end you see what they propagate is almost the same thing. You see? There may be variations here and there, but it's always people-centered, people-oriented. You see? So because of that, it's easy to sit down, but in the background, and chart a strategy forward in the interest of the country and the people at large.
We've just had that handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. You've met Raila Odinga.
No, I have not met him this time. But, perhaps we expect him to, and President Kenyatta as well, to attend the August. We're going to have a GPF, a conference, a huge conference in Kampala. This is what sends me to Kampala today. I hope to meet with them over there because we are going to invite many heads of states of East Africa, the region here, East African region, you see, and other top dignitaries, the world. They'll be there. And the chair of that meeting, we expect President Museveni to chair the meeting himself. So I hope to meet with them over there.
Now, moving forward, do you think there's going to be a time that we will not be in need of such negotiations up and down because it's a tedious process?
Of course, we are on our way there. You see, look at the world history. Look at the history of the countries that are developed, when we call them developed. We are still developing countries, right? They call themselves developed. They are developed in many aspects, in many ways. One of them in the political system. So, yes, one day we'll get there. We'll get there. It's a process. It takes time. But in the end, we are the same people. We are all brothers and sisters. We live in the same countries, Look at this East African Community Project. This project was there before. It was formed by the British a long time ago when they were ruling this region. It used to be called the East African Common Services. Perhaps you may have read that, in your school. Okay, but I lived that, saw that. I was there. That time I was young, a very young man. But then that project collapsed suddenly. And then what happens next? Oh, the leadership, East African leadership of the time, sat down and said, well, I think here we made a mistake, to allow the East African community to collapse. Let's restart it again. We restarted it, and look at where we are now. We are on our way forward now, both socially, economically, and politically as well.
Okay, lastly, having worn the shoes of president in the East African region, how does that shoe feel?
It pinches, most of the time. And the reason being simple, you have a huge responsibility over your people, and that huge responsibility keeps you on your toes all the time, unless you don't care. But if you do, well, it's a very serious job to do. You see, it's a very serious job to do, and I commend all those presidents who have decided, to run and won the elections, for moving, taking their nations forward, It's not easy. It's not an easy task. And I tell you one thing, after you've served for 10 years, you are exhausted. You are completely exhausted. So that's it. That's my experience.
Thank you very much. That has been Dr. Amani Karume, former president of the Republic of Zanzibar from 2000 to 2010, giving us insights concerning what it feels to be a peace builder in the East African region, as well as being president and what it feels and the challenges that come with it. Back to you.
The art scene in the Democratic Republic of Congo is vibrant and flourishing, but the talented local artists still struggle for international recognition. Voice of America's Anita Powell takes us to the studios of some of Kinsasha's top talents, including 25-year-old art sensation Eddie Kamwanga Ilunga.
Painter Eddie Kamwanga Ilunga says he is inspired by his country's vast cultural and mineral wealth, but also its painful colonial history. His works have been exhibited in South Africa, Europe, and the United States, as African art has risen in popularity. One of his pieces can fetch up to $30,000 at an international auction. While those prices make him one of Congo's highest-paid artists, industry insiders say by international standards, his work only fetches average prices.
I think that one should know that the artists here from Africa are regarded differently on the international art scene, and I think it's a struggle of many artists in Africa to get the same recognition.
Sculptor Freddie Tsimba says one problem is the lack of support at home. His works, made of discarded items like bullet casings, keys, and spoons, are shown internationally, but get little notice in Congo. These original pieces and antique crafts sell for a song at the bustling Kinshasa art market. But high-end work is rare, says local art promoter Fabrice Bashonga.
Congolese art is going very cheap in the international market, mainly because of the lack of consideration locally by the local markets.
Artist Vichwa Milambe Bondo has exhibited and lived around the world, but returned home despite the challenges. He works at this recently established incubator for young Congolese talent.
I said, okay, it's good for me to stay here. Why? Because we need to build art scene and to build, to make something sense, and the people can buy artwork in Congo. And now these people start to buy, but it's process, it's big challenge. I think the really challenge is to be here.
The studio also features women artists.
It is not easy at all because the men, they push you around a bit from all sides, and especially in the Congolese art scene, the market is rather difficult. To get someone to help you show your talent or your work, they block your path. You are a bit pushed aside.
Younger artists also say they struggle to establish themselves.
Me, my biggest dream is that I would like for people to talk about Congolese art the way we talk about American art, the way we talk about German art, the way we talk about Belgian art. I would like for the Congolese artist to be able to rise on the international stage.
Congolese artists say they are hopeful. That bit by bit, stroke by stroke, and line by line, that dream will finally come into focus. Anita Powell, VOA News, Kinshasa.
Well, quite an inspiring story there on the Congo artist. We want to take a quick commercial break with a look at Destination Africa for this week. After the break, we still have more coming up.